The last time we had a hearing like this was November 30th, and I asked the majority explicitly for the email exchanges that go between majority staff and whatever department they're making these requests for. And the reason I requested that was because we come back to here over and over again, and they make these allegations about refusal to comply. And I want to see that, because whenever we actually have the conversations in the hearing room, that's not the case. You talk about rolling productions, which of course makes sense, and of course that's the way it works in court as well, especially given the volume of data requests that have been made, the thousands of them. This notebook here, this is just one that we compiled. This is just from the committee for your two agencies. That's this whole book. That doesn't even count. I'm on Homeland Security as well. We got the same kind of volume of document requests coming for you over there too. And by the way, when the chairman said, you know, we can't do our jobs, I mean, my reaction was kind of this, you know, Homeland Security wasn't trying to do its job. It was trying to do this fake impeachment of Mayorkas. Fortunately, it went over to the Senate and got the back of the hand, which is what it deserved, because it was a sham impeachment, it was totally unconstitutional, et cetera, et cetera. I'm at the point now with these that maybe they just need to go to court. Maybe we just have to have a third party, like a judge, take a look at these and say, you know what? The government's response is reasonable. You need to make priorities, Republican committee leaders. If you're going to make this many data requests spread out over, like, what is it, 70 committees and subcommittees, you have to prioritize. And some of the requests for the data is just overbroad on its face. All documents and communications between DHS on its components referring to or relating to Secretary Mayorkas' statement about the 85%, and this is sent back to 2021. That's a broad data request. We could make something narrower than that. Presumably, the reason you would have these email communications would be to narrow that down if the committee's acting in good faith and trying to do that. But I do want those emails. I want to see those. And with respect to what's coming next week, I guess this is the next step on this, Department of Justice. This committee has, sent subpoenas to live criminal prosecutions, ongoing investigations. They brought up prosecutors here in the middle of those criminal investigations, which is something I've never seen before. I first came to this committee in 1987 as a staffer, completely over the line. You don't want to interfere with a criminal prosecution, because there they are complaining about the inability to go after Hunter Biden, and then they're going to drag in the prosecutors who are leading those prosecutions in the middle of the investigation. That doesn't make any sense. So, next week, I guess what it'll be, they're talking about contempt proceeding against the Attorney General. I think you should take it to court. Now, that's a sad statement, I feel, because I'm on the House Judiciary Committee. I'm a member of the House of Representatives. I'd like to preserve our priorities and our authority, but it looks like it's at the point now where it just really has to be challenged, and we'll need judges and appellate court judges as well to make decisions on what makes sense and what doesn't. And I got to finish up with Mr. Swalwell's comments with respect to Chairman Jordan, but it's not just Chairman Jordan. Former Speaker, actually former Congressman, Mr. McCarthy, also ignored the subpoenas that were issued by the House of Representatives, the Select Committee. What was that, 2 years plus now? Mr. Perry, Mr. Biggs, same thing. So, the irony of them sitting here and basically accusing you all of ignoring subpoenas or data requests or whatever, when we have these 4 Republican members who completely stonewalled them and made no efforts to produce anything, I think is unfortunate. So, last time we had this was Hunter Biden, and I actually made a proposal to sort of, reach a compromise on that, which ended up being accepted by Mr. Biden's attorneys and the committee. I don't think I'm gonna do that again. When we come to this next week, or whatever the next time is where we do these, my suggestion to the administration is just litigate it. Force them to go to court, and let's hash it out then. Or you can do the same strategy that they did, which is to drag your feet and wait till the next election and hope that you're in the majority after that, and then you can just ignore the subpoenas without consequence. So with that, I yield back, and I apologize for you all to continue being dragged up here for these reasons.
Gentleman apologizes. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Buteau, I'd like to direct my questions and comments to you. If you
Conversation. Is this about juveniles?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I had thought that juvenile information was protected and not made publicly available, but we'll set that to the side for the moment. And I appreciate the fact that you're offering to have the communications ongoing. I wanted to go to the CISA discussion that's come up, because again, in Homeland Security, we've spent a lot of time on this issue. This committee has as well. I think, for example, they did a deposition of Ms. Nina Jankowicz, a like 4-hour deposition here, and others on these issues. But I wanted to ask, actually I don't want to ask, I'm going to say this. You know, the CISA mission with respect to protecting elections from challenges that we've seen, and we've discussed this at Homeland Security, and this is, I think, publicly available information, but the United States in 2024 is facing clear efforts by China, Russia, Iran, and other groups and countries to interfere in our elections. And one of the things that CISA, I think, is trying to do is to find ways to protect the election integrity, whether it's at the state level or the federal level as well. And part of the way that they do that is to work with state legislatures, state secretaries of state, and also, in some instances, social media platforms. So the hearing we did, we've done several of these in Homeland Security, and maybe these are some of the thousands of documents that you produced, but I've seen them already as well as part of those hearings. Those are communications between, frequently, on occasion it's somebody in the federal government, but frequently it's between people on the social media platforms, Microsoft or whoever. In many instances, they're state secretaries of state or state officials who have a question about misinformation or false information. For example, poll X is closed right now when actually it isn't. And they want to make sure that that misinformation is taken down so that the electoral process isn't undermined and people who have the right to vote don't have that taken away from them by this kind of election interference effort. And I actually saw Republican efforts to, when they identified misinformation with respect to polls. I think one of the instances I had an email about this and made it part of the record in Homeland Security. They called the social media platform themselves and said, correct that information and take it down so people, voters don't get the wrong information. So what I saw of it was that it was bipartisan, at least on the ground. It's morphed into something different here in Congress, at least with respect to the House Republican leadership and some of the ways they've tried to approach this and turn it into something where it's, an election integrity effort to steal the elections or something along those lines. And I might have been in the committee next door where they, argued these were First Amendment violations. But I think it's important for the American people to know that we have adversaries out there who are trying to undermine American democracy. And the 2024 election is at risk, frankly, by some of these foreign agents. They're trying to find ways to undermine it. I really want to commend CISA and the department for trying to find ways to attack that. I don't want to attack the private sector people, some of the social media platforms who've been participating and trying to work with the government, state or federal, or any other actors who want to try and protect elections as well, and recognize that social media platforms, in some instances, have been used by some of these foreign adversaries to spread misinformation and disinformation in an effort to undermine our democracy. And that's not just for elections, that's other scenarios too. So I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing. I also did want to, just before I run out of time here, raise my concern about this committee's attacks on government employees, federal government employees in particular, who were really just trying to do their jobs. Ms. Jankowicz was one of the worst examples of that. She ended up having to hire security to protect her from people who were making threats, some of them fed by people in the House of Representatives on the Republican side as we sit here now. And that's not the way this should work. It really isn't. People who are just trying to do their jobs, work for Uncle Sam and do the right thing to make America better, safer, and stronger don't deserve to be attacked in that way. So I see my time has expired, but again, I hope that we can find a bipartisan way to stop attacking you all for these issues and protect our elections from some of our foreign adversaries who are actually trying to undermine them as we speak. And with that, I yield back.
I just inquired, and the gentleman's not suggesting that anyone on this subcommittee is attacking government employees by inquiring about status of subpoena replies.
Not this subcommittee at this moment, but in the transcripts that this subcommittee and this committee will not release publicly, that's absolutely the case. And that's also absolutely been the case in social media statements that have been made, whether it's on X or Twitter or whatever. And I don't want to name people because, then we get into that issue. But yeah, Nina Jankowicz was personally attacked by members of this committee.
Full committee? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely. If I can share the information with you whenever you'd like, but and we made it part of the record actually during her deposition here and when she testified on Homeland Security. So it's not secret. I'm happy to share
I
it.
appreciate the gentleman. The subcommittee controls what it can. Gentle lady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I yield my time to the gentleman from Kentucky.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized. 5 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady from Florida. Assistant Secretary Egorin, there's some documents that we've been trying to get a hold of for years, and you all are withholding them, and I'm going to give you the story behind that and demand that you deliver them. So in December of 2020, the CDC produced an MMWR. That's one of their newsletters, kind of their version of an academic paper, characterizing the Pfizer trials of the vaccine, of the BioNTech vaccine. And the FDA had summarized the Pfizer trials. When the CDC's MMWR, they said that the vaccine was 92% efficacious for those who had already had COVID. I was struck by this claim because, well, first of all, I was interested because I had already had COVID and I was wondering whether to take the vaccine or not. And I had studied the Pfizer data, the top-line data, and the FDA characterization of it. And you know what? The problem with the CDC's claim is completely inaccurate. The trials didn't prove that at all. The trials weren't designed to prove that. So I called up the CDC, and I recorded the phone call. And they said, we'll get the top scientist on the line with you, and we'll find out what the deal is here. And they got their top scientist on the line. And she said, wow, you found a mistake in our paper. I can't believe this was in there. We will fix this. We're going to call you Eagle Eye Massie over here at the CDC. And said, okay, that's great. I appreciate you fixing this because there's no data to support this. So a month goes by, and in January of 2021, I call up and I look at their website. Lo and behold, nothing has been fixed. And I then started contacting people at the CDC, and they were very averse to fixing it, the misstatement. And this began a saga. Just 3 minutes or 3 hours into the Biden administration was one of these phone calls when the cover-up started to begin. They were conflicted. They wanted everybody to take the vaccine. They didn't have data that showed it would help anybody who had already had the COVID infection, but they didn't want to change this. So I made lots of calls, recorded them all. They admitted to me that they were wrong and said they would fix it. They eventually changed it, but they never did fix it. Okay, so then a FOIA request went to CDC, and they produced over 1,000 pages, most of it redacted like this. The FOIA request was every conversation about Congressman Massie, and it produced, at CDC, it produced over 1,000 pages. Imagine that. but they were mostly redacted. They didn't want to say what they were saying about the truth that I was giving to them. So then I've been trying for years, and I tried in October and I tried in December of 2023 to get these unredacted emails. Well, right before this hearing, lo and behold, you all produced some unredacted emails. Here's the problem. You left out dozens of them. Dozens of these emails that were responsive to the request. And it was not by accident. These aren't minor oversights. Like, here are the kind of redactions. The whole entire email is redacted. The subject is the call from Rep. Thomas Massie. These are the kind of redactions. Look at this. Entire pages redacted. My question is, when are you going to produce these? And why are you not producing these? Why are you pretending that these emails don't exist? Some of them are in my inbox. Some of them are to me, but they're not in your production. Why?
Congressman, I want to thank you for acknowledging the production that my team did last week to you. And if there are specific documents that are not included and you can identify them, I am happy to continue to work with you and with the committee staff for productions. That production, as with all of the requests before this committee, have not stopped. We are happy to continue to work. We are happy to continue producing documents on a rolling basis, or if there are specific requests or specific documents.
Did you think this one was responsive? The subject is call with Rep. Massie. It's Ann Tatum, Christina Cerna, and a month ago, Dr. Amanda Cohen and I had a call with Rep. Thomas Massie of Kentucky regarding concern about language in the MMWR from December 13th that was inaccurate. Redacted, redacted, redacted. He called again yesterday and is raising concerns about the issue, including on Twitter. Redacted, 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 redacted. I wanted to let you know in case you hear any more about it. Redacted, redacted, redacted. But wanted you to be aware of this issue is continuing. Dr. Shushat spoke with Rep. Massie today. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Anstons. Why did you think this is not responsive to my request?
Congressman, I'm not saying this was or were not responsive. We did a production last week. Did not say that our productions were finished. I'm happy if there are specific other documents, if there are specific things that you have that you would like us to produce, if you would like us to continue work, we are happy to continue the accommodation.
I've told you specifically what it is. We're 4 years into this. You know, we gave you the list of things to give us. We said the things that were responsive to the FOIA request. You conspicuously left out the most relevant emails. We're out of time. You are out of time. We are tired of this. It's not incompetence, it's insolence. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, I guess we're talking about COVID again. That's all right. I'm old enough to remember when the former president, President Trump, wrote out, that's number 3, looks like a third-rate grandstander named Thomas Massie, a congressman from, unfortunately, a truly great state, Kentucky, wants to vote against the new Save Our Workers bill in Congress. That was a COVID bill that we were considering. And that was 4 years ago. And my colleague from Kentucky is still on this COVID kick. But I want to set the record straight, Secretary Agorin. Is the COVID vaccine safe and effective?
Thank you for the question. The COVID vaccine is safe and effective, and thanks to the COVID vaccine and the efforts and funding that we did get for the vaccine, we were able to reopen the economy.
And how cooperative has HHS been regarding this particular line of inquiry from Mr. Massie? How many witnesses have been brought in for transcribed interviews?
Congressman, across the requests related to COVID vaccines, we have facilitated 3 transcribed interviews, including one just last month. We have made 4 productions across multiple of the divisions in the department.
Can you just lay out broadly how many people are dedicated to responding to requests from Congress? And is this the only committee that is sending you requests?
Congressman, as I said in my testimony, HHS is committed to being responsive to Congress. And it's not just oversight requests, it's requests for technical assistance on the legislation that policymakers are drafting. It is providing witnesses for hearings, including senior officials to talk about the president's budget requests. It's providing policy briefings and updates on legislation. So it is, the responsiveness to Congress is both oversight, but the larger legislative mission of Congress. It's across the department. It's not just in the Assistant Secretary of Legislation. It is in each of the operating divisions. And we currently, just in terms of oversight, have 150 oversight request letters from 17 different committees. And as I said, this is one part of what we do to be responsive. We are very happy to continue to work with Congress as they develop policy and have additional questions.
And what are the dangers of Congressman Massie's fear-mongering against a safe and effective vaccine that saves lives against a virus that killed over 1 million Americans?
Congressman, as the Secretary has said, as our senior leaders and public health officials have said, the vaccine for COVID is safe and effective. It reduces hospitalization, it reduces risk of death. Because of the investments that we were able to make in providing free vaccines during the Biden-Harris administration, we were able to reopen the economy, reopen schools, be able to celebrate holidays.
Go to church?
Go to church, gather, and all of that is very much a reflection of our ability to, as not just the COVID vaccine, but all vaccines, help improve the public health of the country.
Yield back.
All right, that concludes today's hearing. I'm going to, before we adjourn, ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from Breitbart entitled Jayapal Lectures GOP for Exposing Murder Case Details and Reveals Minor MS-13 Suspect's Name. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for their witnesses or additional materials for the record. I thank our witnesses. Without objection, the hearing is adjourned.